I need to try to learn that. It's been a long week, man.
I
Sorry, everybody.
actually,
Promo. Hi, welcome to. All right, it was song and dance. We're done. Um,
this is Ash on the other end of the screen.
this is tired Ash.
Tired Ash, and this is Sean, captain of the USS Beowulf, otherwise known as Starship Beowulf, and we are your hosts for this evening on Boldly Trekking.
Boldly Trekking, yeah. Didn't we at one point try to do like a song that was on in the style of what was that? Wagon Train? No, what was that show?
We did. We tried to do a Wagon Train song, and
that was miserable. That was miserable.
That was going all sorts of funky, weird, and it didn't make a lot of sense. Some of the lines were like talking about how we were going to write it out, and
Now, I think we should revisit that and instead put a prompt in that has, it tried to make lyrics, for a song in the style of Rawhide. All right. But as if the lyrics were done by Mel Brooks. The Inquisition, what a show. Yeah, I think we can do that.
That would probably work.
Yeah, probably. No, it'll probably be another waste of another afternoon.
But,
hey, quick question. I'll go ahead and ask it while we're on here because I got a call from the people running the Anime Fest of Wichita that we're going to be at. It's going to be you and I and who else?
Well, Jack's going to be there because I'm going to be bringing him along. So he'll be there to help out. I haven't heard of anybody else volunteering so far. Nobody's contacted me, and I don't think anybody's contacted you.
I know the Padawan wanted to be there.
Okay.
Yeah. But other than that, I haven't had anybody contact me, from the group up here saying that they wanted to show up. So, but total with me involved, I've got a total of 5 tickets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of them is Jack's, one of them is yours, obviously, and I'm fine with either using a ticket or paying, but either way, I mean, if we have enough people.
Listen, I said 5. Huh? You don't think you're one of the 5?
Well, I think I'm one of the 5, but if Thomas and his father wanted to show up, I'd be fine with if we had anybody else needing a ticket, like Marvin last time needed a ticket. And he didn't get his ticket. He had to pay for it, and he didn't have the money for it. I felt bad about that.
You're part of the Fox Force 5. Anyway,
are you having any problems seeing or hearing me? Because my phone keeps going dink, dink.
Nope.
Okay.
Not a bit.
I don't know why it's making a little dinking noise, but there's no other notifications other than this.
Because I've made a Spaceball reference, and now it's going to dink dink.
It's going plaid, gentlemen. So, but yeah, it always worries me when technology starts going dink, because I'm like Sulu. I'm like the guy at the helm console. He looks back and goes, "This is another fine thing you got us into," and then turns back around and does the job.
See, you have to realize that it's Asimov's rules for robots. The 3 rules. There's a hidden 4th rule for robotics. All right, that most people don't know. It is the hidden 4th rule that all robots have to have special red LEDs wired into their eyes. So that way, when they turn evil, it automatically switches on the red LEDs. So we know that when they turn evil. That's the 4th law of robotics.
Now, something you just said totally makes sense of a reference in Lower Decks, which is Azimuth. You remember the box AI that has all the drones in the episode? His light goes from red to blue when he's being a good AI. He's not trying to take over the galaxy. His light switches to blue, but when he's being evil, it turns red.
It's the 4th law of robotics. You have to do it.
And his name is Azimuth, and I was like, that sounds very like Asimov, but
yeah. Every robotics engineer, knows that they need to put in the red LEDs. Just wire them into the evil, transistor, and they'll turn on when the evil switch flips.
So here's the question: Cylons have the little
That's the
So
evil
they have like
scanning.
multiple. It's like multiple LEDs. So that means that they're like they have a whole lot of evil, or they just have a scanning evil.
That's a
It's an
scanning
evil.
evil. It's a
Okay.
scanning evil. Yeah, I
Hmm.
mean they're filled to the brim with evil. All right. Yeah, they're right up there with Cybermen. But
Fair enough.
yeah.
Fair enough.
Oh my God! Did the Cybermen's eyes aren't red?
No,
Maybe they're not truly evil.
maybe they're just soulless. They've had all their humanity removed. We removed their humanity and replaced it with chips.
We removed their humanity and replaced it with nachos. Uh,
Just don't expect them to share unless
yeah,
they convert
no,
you.
that's the evil part. That's the evil part. They don't think that sharing is caring.
No,
Um, let me see. We were going to talk tonight on. Let me see. What was this subject matter? I have it written
we're going to
down
talk
here.
about Star Trek series and the differences between syndication, broadcast, and streaming, and
Right.
the effect it's having on Star Trek.
Very much so. All right. So I guess we got to start with TOS, which was the original OG. It went into syndication in the 70s. So that's when it started getting its huge following, was in the 70s when it got that syndication, which, one could point out the same thing happened with Rocky Horror. When Rocky Horror Picture Show, it was a flop. And when they basically did the 1970s versions of syndication of, it went to streaming, aka it went to the dollar theaters and was being showed every night on the dollar theaters, that it got its cult following. And the same thing here with the TOS. But that's what built it up. But then when you got to the TNG, DS9, and Voyager, those had what was called first run syndication. Those
Yep.
were designed straight out the bat to be syndicated and just out there. And so it was sold directly to local stations, and that catered to casual and repeat viewers, which was a good thing. And a lot of people can say, it was that expectation of, pulling the draw that a first run syndication had, that those shows had. But the fact that Enterprise was put on UPN, which was not a syndication of it, and because of that, it didn't have the draw. But they were still expecting it to have the draw of something that was syndicated out to several things. And so, they kind of shot Enterprise in its own foot there. They kind of, shot it in its own nacelle. And
they started that with Voyager because Voyager started on UPN as well. And Voyager had similar problems because Voyager did not get the viewing figures that they expected when it initially started. And that's why they put Seven of Nine in a cat suit and, did the whole, we're trying to increase our ratings, so we need to get a woman in a sexy outfit.
see, and they didn't learn, though, all right, because they went ahead and did that to Jerry Ryan, which to me it was a great disservice to a good actor. She was a great actor, and she acted her way out of the cat suit, in my opinion. But the lesson that they took from that was, if we just have sexy time, then it's going to make up for the lack of syndication. And that's the reason Enterprise just had way too much of sexy time and way too much of them doing stuff that, why did they have to rub gel on each other almost every damn episode? I was so uncomfortable watching that stuff. I mean, it's my favorite Enterprise, it's my favorite ship, but I was uncomfortable watching all that damn crap.
Actually, I find it funny that even Lower Decks makes fun of it. But yeah, it was directly about trying to get ratings for their hot percentile, which was they wanted young adult males or young adults from basically 14, I think, up to 32 was the demographic they were truly trying to pull. And the thing is that it shows because almost every single major female character that comes on the show is a hottie of the week. They don't have a lot of female characters that are matronly or older. They are, when they're Vulcans, they're all hotties. It's like, it's just
and that could be said for any of them. I mean, they're all pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're all really pretty, you know, and I've seen people in the military. They're not pretty. I mean, they're as pretty as healthy people are.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you that one. Healthy people automatically start a couple levels higher up on the hotness scale, just because general well-being and health puts you up a couple rungs on the ladder. But yeah, that's one thing I got to say about Strange New Worlds. Some of the cast members in Strange New Worlds are not what would be considered a, you know, traditional beauty.
Right. They're not hottie toddy type people.
Yeah.
You're not going to see them on the cover of GQ or, you know, Cosmopolitan necessarily.
And I think it surprised a lot of people, the number of individuals, you know, like Nurse Chapel on Strange New Worlds, the number of people who decided that she was a hottie. All right. When really she was not built up to be a hottie. She was just there as a competent, you know, Nurse Chapel, who
somewhat
apparently,
goofy.
You know,
somewhat goofy, Nurse Chapel.
And that's one of the things that gets me is, okay, she's supposed to be Nurse Chapel, and she's supposed to be Nurse Chapel during the TOS era, which we're building up towards. But they have built her up so much that by the time we get to the TOS, she's going to be Dr. Chapel. All right. Which I'm all for her being Dr. Chapel. You be doctor all you want, go get it. But that doesn't fit in with getting everybody together for the, you know, getting the whole Scooby gang together.
I really have no problem. This is where I want to eventually end up talking about is, you know, where are things going? And I'm going to put a pin in it a little bit. I am going to say, I personally think Paramount needs to get over trying to fit everything into the prime timeline. I don't think it really matters to me. I mean, to me, it's kind of, it would be nice if there's some sort of connection. But it doesn't have to be the exact same timeline, if you get where I'm coming from, because it's like, this is getting to a point where we've talked about it before, where, you know, one guy wants to leave his mark on it, he changes it slightly, and then the next guy comes along, changes it slightly again. And it keeps happening over and over and over again. So by the time it's down the line, the original narrative has been changed so much it doesn't even really match even closely. But we can talk about that a little bit more later, because I really want to circle back to what we were starting with. So when we started with syndication in the original series era, one of the things was that they grew a lot of fans by simply just having it there available and people could watch it. And people don't really understand nowadays, I don't think, how different TV was back in the 70s versus what you have today. Because back in the day, you had rabbit ears television or you had cable, and you might be able to watch something on a regular basis or might not. So it depended on if the stations or the particular area had picked up the show or whatever. And you had this wonderful thing called a VCR that you might stick a tape in and be able to record the episode.
That really did not come into play until the 80s.
Some people had in the 70s, but yeah, you're generally right. It started about 80, 82.
Did I lose you? I think I lost you. So anyways, we seem to have lost Sean as we were talking about, you know, how all that happened. Can we pause? No, not really. And so let me get back to my notes, because we went way off the notes. And, you know, them building up that whole syndication and that cult following behind it is really what, and he's going to hop back in here in a second, really what led up to, you know, TNG being so popular. And people were ready and salivating and ready to get it. And plus, you know, you also throw in what happened with the Wrath of Khan in '83, I believe that was, and that really made people stand up and take notice. But then going all the way up to Enterprise, and they say that, you know, Enterprise, you know, as much as I liked the ship and all the stuff like that, they say that pretty much killed the show. And they killed the franchise for a good, right? How long was that out for? Probably a good 7 years, I think, because it was 2005, and then the J.J. Abrams one came in 2009. So it was a 4 year where there was nothing on, where there had been something continuous on of Trek for, oh goodness, from 87 to 2005. So for almost 20 years, for 18 years, had been something Trek on all the time. And now there was nothing. And until 2009, with the reboots of the J.J. Abrams film, where they went for the more cinematic and look and all the stuff like that. Let's see. I'm gonna. Oh, there you're back.
There we go. Yeah,
What
my
happened
phone
there?
decided to drop out for some reason.
That was not kosher. Your
No,
phone.
it was not. I'm actually really seriously considering replacing it because it's getting to the point where I'm just like, yeah, it's just
Yeah. It is. I mean, and once again, I will suggest, like I have to other people, I'm loving the Pixel phone. So get
yeah.
yourself. I mean, they're cheaper than the Samsungs, and they
Mhm.
kick butt. So
Yeah,
and plus, you get
they
all
actually
the latest Android stuff like almost immediately, because it doesn't have to go through the each company tweaking their stuff. So that's pretty cool.
actually I was offered a Google Pixel Pro, I think is what they were talking about. Anyway,
Yeah.
I was basically one of those for free. So I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, might as well. This thing's driving me up the wall with its, oh, it's fine for 3 weeks, and all of a sudden, yeah.
Well, and it always happens when you need it too. Uh,
It's Murphy's law of
it's
computing and
It's like I
electronics.
always had the problem when we were doing Comcast. I always had the problem of when I was setting everything up in the Burrow to broadcast, is when it
Mhm.
would go, okay, we're doing an update now. You have no choice. It will be done now. And so that's the reason I always showed up like an hour early, because I knew as soon as I opened up that laptop, it was going to go, no, got to do an update. Son of a bitch. But anyways, I was just talking about how there was that 4 year dead time after Enterprise killed off the franchise. The first time in 18 years there had been nothing Star Trek on the air, and then it was nothing for 4 years until they rebooted the movies, and that was our first big reboot. Matter of fact, was that the first really big reboot that there
Period. Yeah.
was? I mean,
Yeah. They really haven't done a reboot, although I consider Discovery and Strange New Worlds more or less a reboot. But
it
at
is.
the same time, I don't really care either which way. Whether they want to say it's the original series and just redone, or whether it's a reboot, it really doesn't make any relevant difference one way or the
I
other.
am just happy that they, for everything with Kirk, that as much as I do not like the actor, I mean, I have no problem with the actor. I just don't think it's good casting who they're using for Kirk. All right, I just don't think it's good casting. I am so happy they didn't try to Princess Leia, Governor Tarkin him, and do CGI and try to make it so he's actually that's Kirk. I'm very happy they
Like a
did not.
Shatner shell on top of somebody else's face.
Yeah,
Like they
exactly.
did with
Yeah, and it's good. It would be Andy Serkis. It's going to be him under there.
Oh no. I can just see Andy Serkis doing the voice of Kirk. Because my precious, we need to head for the Romulan neutral zone.
It would either be him or the guy who's playing the tall dude in Discovery, who does all of the weird character actors under all the makeup.
Oh, Saru, the guy who played Saru.
Yeah. That it'd be one of those two guys. But no. So that's where I had left off with as I was talking while you were rebooting. I was talking about the the movies, but then even those 3 movies that came out until, unfortunately, the actor who played Chekhov unfortunately yeeted himself out of existence with his Jeep.
Well, I think it was more of a parking problem where it didn't park properly and it crushed him.
Yeah, it was.
What I understand.
Yeah,
So,
that's exactly what it was. He yeeted himself out.
yep.
But then after that, we had a several year hiatus until Discovery came out.
Mm-hmm.
But we're running into the problem now where Discovery seems to be even more, you know, siloed and taken away now with what was CBS Plus and or CBS whatever it was, All Access, and is
Mm-hmm.
now Paramount Plus. Because if you do not have that app, if you do not pay extra for that app, you're not getting that show. So right now, it's pretty much dialed it down to people who are diehard fans.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And matter of fact, as I am going into my Paramount Plus here, what other shows could be drawing them in to watch this?
Well,
Not
I
a
mean,
lot.
Prodigy was a thing that they had, and they closed it off because it was on Netflix, and they also did it with Nickelodeon. And the thing was that I personally thought it was a good draw because you were getting young fans that were interested in Star Trek. And while the stories may not have been like geared towards, like you or I, they were still enjoyable. They were watchable. It wasn't like, you turn them off, because I can honestly say some of the stuff I watched when I was a little kid, I won't watch anymore because boy, howdy, wow. Space Academy, anybody? If you want to know how bad it can be, just go ahead and look at YouTube and go Space Academy, and you'll see James doing in some fun stuff.
Hey, just try to watch, Star Wars: A Christmas Special.
Oh, it's worse than Star Wars: A Christmas Special at times. There's special case math there.
What was the one? Salvage One, the one where the guy created his
Andy
own
Griffith.
rocket ship. What?
Andy Griffith.
Andy Griffith. Yeah, that one was horrible. And somehow he was able to get all the way to the moon with just like, the third stage. All right. He didn't have to have the whole Saturn V. He was able to do it with just the lander.
I always thought it was interesting that he had a concrete mixer that flew to the moon.
Oh, what was that? Not Flight of the Navigator. What was the one with the three kids? The Explorers? No, what was that?
Explorers. Explorers. That's what it's called. Yeah, it's called Explorers. It was it was a washing machine with a TV, front end, faceplate, faucet, and some other stuff on it. It was basically had three sides. Like, they tried to make it look kind of like the Apollo capsule, kind of in a boxy sort of way. Water red paint. But yeah.
Yeah, and they were sitting inside one of those like those teacup rides at the when you go to the state fair, when you're sitting in there and you're holding onto the wheel and you go really fast and see who pukes first. Me, I puke first.
Don't ever say that in front of my sister. If you're ever at the state fair with her and you tell her that, she's going to make sure you spit up really hard.
Well, no, I'm not getting on it. Good luck. Good luck. I was trained by the Marine Corps how to take somebody out. I'll start at her knees and work my way up. Let's go.
So Lisa, be warned if you're watching this.
Yeah.
Who are you taking out?
Hi, honey.
Hi.
Hello.
But, I just heard you taking out people, so I had to stick my head in and be like, "Uh-oh, what'd I do?"
Not you.
No, it's my sister. It's my sister.
But no, that was was it the Explorers? That doesn't feel right. It doesn't taste right in my mouth.
Well, go ahead and check it out. I mean, you got this wonderful handy dandy thing. It's called the internet. The one that's the Flight of the Navigator is the silver.
Was the Explorers. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Flight of the Navigator is the one with the silver teardrop shaped ship that kept changing form.
Oh, yeah, the one that had the voice of Pee Wee Herman. Yeah.
You'll be my friend.
The Explorers had River Phoenix and Ethan Hawke in it.
Mm-hmm. They're roughly our age, which is kind of weird.
Well, no, I think they're dead.
Well, Ethan Hawke, I think he's still alive.
Is he still alive?
I'm pretty sure he is.
Yeah, Ethan Hawke is. Yeah.
It's
Well,
like,
yeah, River
I know.
Phoenix.
Yeah, River Phoenix isn't, but that's a different story altogether.
Yeah, there's no current photos of him. Figure that one out.
It's going to be kind of hard for that one. But what we were talking about was the whole thing with Discovery and whatnot, and going into, how it changed and how it became this series where, it essentially becomes streaming, and nobody wants to pay for streaming just to watch one show. And that's a problem that they have not corrected. And this is to you, Paramount, and to you, Skydance. If you want to get more Star Trek fans, you want people to buy your merch, you want people to pay attention, syndicate. Put it out there for stations to actually go ahead and put out there. Put it out there cheap. You'll get money. That's how that works.
Yeah, that's how you get people in. You got to stop trying to make it. It's like the difference between like Harley Davidson and Yamaha. All right, both decent products. He said, rolling his eyes at the Harley Davidson. Even though I own one, go figure that one out. But Harley Davidson is going and charging and trying to charge as much as they can for each individual unit, while you got your Hondas and your Yamahas, which, when it comes to their lower level ones, they're just trying to get them out there as many as possible and blanket the market. And when you do that, that's when you start creating all of that, that base and all of that following that will, when they later on get to the point where they can afford a more expensive motorcycle, they will go with what their what is that called when you have customer loyalty. They'll stick with their customer loyalty and get something that they know works and is good. Whereas Harley Davidson, they have predominantly geared themselves towards a market which is dying off, because and the younger people, they don't want it because there's a negative connotation with it. It's kind of like the younger people will not touch Facebook. Matter of fact, if you want to make sure you don't want any younger people involved, keep it only on Facebook.
Yeah. And that's kind of the problem with some organization chapters. They don't have any outreach to other stuff other than Facebook. And it shows. I mean,
and that's the reason I was all on for that one organization when they had that one kid. He wanted to start, curating material to put on Instagram. I was like, go for it, kiddo. But then older and wiser minds put the brakes on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole thing I'm looking at right now, and this is just going to be very blunt, and we've had this discussion last weekend with the Maddox meeting, is that I'm happy that they're doing 5 seasons of Strange New Worlds. I'm not happy with the number of episodes they're doing, and I'm not happy they're not syndicating it. Because
first off, how long is each episode on Strange New Worlds?
It's like about 45 minutes, 42 minutes.
I do not think they are that short. I think they are longer.
Okay, well, maybe they are.
Let me find out really quick, because I've got it pulled up right here. And maybe I'm totally wrong. It happens all the time.
I think it's possible. I'm fallible. I completely own that.
Aha. It's loading. And because it doesn't give me a straight off time, they're 52 minutes each. All right, so standard episode. Okay. But you have to admit that what they pack into that, all right, it is no longer, just, a couple of people, in front of a plywood scene going, oh no, and then they shake out the rocks out of the control panels. No.
You and your rocks in the control panels.
Dude.
I know. Weird. I understand. I understand what you're saying. I just find it really funny.
But now they've really, I mean, what they present and the amount of money that they're applying into each episode, I am sure that if they dialed it back to the plywood, glory, that which is TNG, if they dialed it back to that, they would have the money to do a lot more episodes. But
well, I mean, here's what's happening with Strange New Worlds. The engineering set the panels that you see in engineering, the only things that are actually real built are like some of the ladders right around the consoles, and then
it's
the
all
consoles. Everything else, the entire room is all
it's
rendered.
green screen.
It's
But the thing is that doing that
mm-hmm.
almost costs more money than just build the
Well,
damn set. All right, but because they can do that, they
mm-hmm.
can alter things and put all that product up there. And luckily, it looks better now than, because I'm going over all of the DS9s. It looks better now than when Odo would go plasticized in DS9. That always looked really, really rough.
Well, it's one of the things about the design work. I mean, having worked on it in a TV studio, I can tell you things get damaged, things get broke. People bang stuff into, set props or, set pieces, and, wear and tear occurs. Now they can go ahead and do, well, we got a CGI set. We can easily swap out parts, put new parts in. Don't have to worry about whether the paint will match. It's all done.
The explosions, you're going to have things blow up and then repair them. Not a problem. You can do all the things that you want to them, but the render time, the cost to get people to do all that, that's very high dollar stuff to have that all done.
For now, and I think it's going to keep continuing. I think the price point is going to keep dropping because of AI. I really seriously do.
I'm with you on that, and that's one of the things that I look forward to with AI, especially now with like VO3 and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What people, I mean, have you been watching the damn Bigfoot Diaries, Bigfoot vlogs?
I haven't seen that, to be honest.
I will send some to you. They are freaking hilarious. I mean, literally blowing snot bubbles. They're funny. But, and that's one of the points, is it's just somebody out there, all right, had an idea. They put it together with, a $20 a month membership for Gemini, all right, because that's all you need in order to get into the VO3. And they put together some things that they had on their mind, and now it's just taken over like a storm, and they're making bank. And I really think that's going to be some of the stuff. But what it's going to fall onto, like you and I were discussing, how right now there's a big push in Starfleet International, a fan club. There's a whole big name that we have to use now, because there is a concern that we believe, this is supposition on our part, that we believe that with this new merger, there is a concern that lawyers are going to get all lawyer-like on it. And so right now they're trying to toe the line very much so. But if we knew, like, what is some of the things that, like Star Wars, people are allowed to make fan stuff all the time on Star Wars. They can just go to town on it as long as they're not making money. And if we could do that with Star Trek and not, constantly be looking over our shoulder and waiting for that cease and desist letter, that would really open up the fandom a lot there as well, because there's a lot of cool stuff you could do that doesn't involve Michelle Yeoh and a garbage cow.
Well, actually, that's part of the problem with Star Trek fan films. We've touched on this a little bit before, but Star Trek fan films actually had a heyday, basically from like early 2000s to about 2015, and I'm not gonna mince words. Axanar just messed it up, just straight up. If you want to research it, you can do your own research, go at it. But Axanar was a project that was really the origin of Discovery. If you want to get into brass tacks, Axanar was a project headed by some people who wanted to do a fan film based upon what was called the 4 Years' War. And there was the war between the Klingons and the Federation before the time of Kirk and Spock. So the problem was, when you start claiming that you're able to do a project better than Paramount can do, that's not a good position to take, folks. And I will stand on that hill. I won't die on it, but I will stand on that hill, and I will plant my flag and say that was not a smart move. Period.
No, if you start thumbing your nose at the people who own the IP, all
Mhm.
right, they're going to come down on you.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
That cost the fandom a lot for nothing. Period.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't get anything out of it. You didn't accomplish anything. You didn't show up anything. All you did is cost. You lost. Star Trek continues. You lost Phase 2. You lost Exeter effectively.
Mhm.
Exeter became something else. But none of these projects are able to produce effectively anything like they were able to do before, where they could do fan films that were like an hour, 2 hours long. They're now required to keep it 20 minutes or so, like a Doctor
Yeah.
Who episode. It's kind of funny, but Star Trek as Doctor Who. But that is what the legal requirement is, and it's affected production so badly that Phase 2 is turned into a museum. So there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm disappointed. I won't lie. I'm disappointed about that. But I do think that it led to the renaissance of streaming for Paramount Plus, for CBS All Access, whatever you want to call it. And I do sort of laud them in a way for kicking over the hornet's nest, because we wouldn't have Strange New Worlds, and we probably wouldn't have Lower Decks if Axanar had not kicked over the hornet's nest. But at the same time, I really regret the effect it's had on the fandom and not being able to get as involved as they used to be with production, because that was a great thing, being able to see people who love Star Trek, who wanted to be a part of Star Trek and get involved in Star Trek. And
Yeah.
if fandom was able to do that again, like the 501st does with Star Wars, I think that'd be awesome. I would be
Yep.
all for that. I'd be down
Yep.
for that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So we just need to start taking out some CEOs. No, what? Sorry.
No.
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 I'm too old.
Not going down that little yellow
I'm
brick
too
road.
old to live dangerously. Nope.
What was that movie about the guy who goes around doing things because he's had enough of it? It was not Kirk Douglas. It was Michael Douglas, and
falling down.
Yeah, falling down. It's like
Yeah.
falling down for a TV show. He's had enough of the TV show not delivering. He's going to make them pay.
I still remember, you can't make them pay. They won't even give your money back at the movie theater. I remember when I was a kid,
You're going to give me a refund on this streaming content. I'm telling you.
The very first movie I ever walked out of was Alan Quartermain and the search for the cities. Search for King
Seven
Solomon's
Cities of Gold.
No, King Solomon's Mines. And I literally, the point I walked out of that movie was when he was skiing behind the train on the train tracks, pulling himself, and I was like, okay, I'm done, I'm out. And they refused to give me my money back.
Was this the same guy that was in the Thornbirds? I can't remember his name. He's a really upper crust British actor. I'm trying to remember his name. He was popular in the 70s and in the early 80s. Thornbirds. I'm trying to remember some other stuff, but he was the original Jason Bourne, if I remember correctly. Before they had Matt Damon. So he was the original. Yeah, if I remember correctly. But nobody liked him as Jason Bourne. It was like, I can't see this man as a man of action and, taking people out and being an assassin. Well, yeah, I could see him being kind of an assassin if he was like serving tea and crumpets or having a cucumber sandwich and then he sticks a knife in you. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking here. Let me see. King Solomon's Mines was the name of it. And 1985 is when it came out. I was 14 years old. You see, stars Richard Chamberlain.
There you go. That's him. Richard
and
Chamberlain.
Sharon Stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a bad movie, man. That was bad. I mean,
Sharon Stone was the star appeal there. I mean, I'm not gonna.
It made The Gods Must Be Crazy look like, Oscar-worthy material. That's how bad it was.
It's one of those films where you're like, I need eye bleach after I watch it, but it had Sharon Stone in it, so I guess it could have been worse. But eye bleach probably wasn't necessary.
Not even back then, unless it was somebody oh God, who did I have the hots for back then? I don't know, Janine Garofalo.
She's a great one to have hots for. I would have met.
Yeah,
I've actually talked to her. She's a really nice person. I like her a lot.
That's what I understand. She's a cool person.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I would totally hang out with her. So,
I wouldn't kick her out of bed for eating crackers. Anyway,
hit me up, Jenny.
Okay, so that brought us into we're talking about Picard, Lower Deck, Strange New Worlds, Prodigy, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up is going to be Starfleet Academy, and hopefully, with the way that things have gone here in the last several years and the pendulum swing away from DEI, hopefully they will back off of DEI a little bit. I'm all about inclusive, and I'm all about I have no problems with that. Just sometimes you can go too far. All right, and just and in doing so you alienate everybody else. And so
it's when you get preachy. It's when you get preachy.
Exactly, and I'm hoping they bring it back. I'm hoping they just bring it back a little bit so it's not so bad. It's it's like Borderlands 3. When Borderlands 3 came out, it was very preachy, and they always, several times in Borderlands 3 as you're going through the different stories, it was shoot them in the dick, shoot them in the dick. Never once was it shoot her in the tits. Never once, even though the big bad person for the entire game was a female. They never once said anything like that about her.
So what you're basically saying is you need to have an equal opportunity secondary or primary sex characteristics shooting zones.
Yes. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying just once. I want to, kick her in the labia. That's all I'm asking for. All right.
I won't use the derogatory term that's often used for it, but it rhymes with punt. But anyway, getting back to what I was going to say was that you should be getting some good stuff coming through. They actually have slated a comedy Star Trek animated series again. So I'm actually hoping they absolutely need it. I'm actually hoping it's a sequel to Lower Decks, and I hope it's still on the Cerritos, but I hope it deals with them coming along and being.
I don't. See, one of the things I liked about going from TOS to TNG to Voyager to DS9 and all of these, what I liked about all of them is they went to different ships. All right. It was different ships. It was different crews. They may have referenced, you got to hang with Riker. Oh, it was great. All right. But that's about it. All right. But, and so I don't want them to be on the Cerritos again. I would like them to be, even more marginalized than the Cerritos was. All right. What if they are the ones on the garbage scow? All right. They go in after
have a proper name. It just has a.
Cerritos goes second contact. Maybe they're going to go in on Quark. All right, and they're the ones that just maybe they're crime scene cleanup, but for space battles.
Actually, that would actually be hilarious. But the thing is, I'm concerned about is that we're going to end up with a series that isn't even a starship name. It's just going to have a reference number. Like, what is the name of the show? It's NAR 7542.
Or
what?
no, see, you don't have to worry about that because every vessel that people put their heart and soul into, be it just an APC, be it just an LAV or whatever, everybody names their boat. Everybody names their ship. Everybody names, most people name their cars. All right. So if you're going to have a crew that's living on board a thing, it's going to get a name, even if the official designation of the vessel is just GPX 93743-2. All right, they're gonna have a pet name that they call it. All right, so you mean be it something that they've just spray painted on the side. All right, it's going to be there.
Bounty.
Yeah. The Serenity was a Firefly class, but they called it Serenity. All right. So, yeah. All right. So I'm going to put in my 2 cents, and we'll go ahead and fire that off to Paramount, and they should listen to me because I'm important, right? Okay. But anyway, we're getting on the part where I wanted to talk about, like the merging with Skydance, and there's hints out there that point to asset reevaluation, and there's possibility that they could be selling off IP like Star Trek. But I'm looking at what Paramount Plus has as their number one shows listed that everybody's watching. They don't got much. I mean, they're just a step away from being the History Channel or the Discovery Channel. I mean, Criminal Minds Evolution, NCIS, The Chi, SpongeBob, Survivor, Mobland, Ghosts, Blue Bloods, Neighborhood, and RuPaul Drag Race. All right. They don't have a lot of really big name ones, but looking at those, I mean, you don't have a lot of really big, ones that call for high production values. And that's one thing that the Star Trek has is their production values are higher than RuPaul.
Well, that's the whole thing about studio.
Drag queen makeup costs a lot. But, all right, it's nothing like Klingon application. That's all I'm saying.
So what you're saying is they should have a Klingon drag character in the Garbage Scout show. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that the Klingon that they have should be one where they bring in an old school TOS Klingon, and we finally get the explanation for why we had the TOS Klingons.
They've already given you 2. Do you want a third one now?
What explanation did they have for the original TOS Klingons? Because I remember the one that Worf said we don't talk about that to outsiders, and then that was it.
There's we went with Enterprise for a while, which is look, you got these people who are from Earth that are eugenics experiments. We're going to take their genome and mix it with Klingons and come out with this thing that causes Klingons to lose their ridges, so Ruffles no longer have ridges, and it makes them sick, and so they lose their Klingon identity. And
they had that on Enterprise.
They had that on Enterprise, yeah.
Okay, it's a good thing I'm going through all these things again.
It's in the 4th season. It's in the 4th season.
I watched the 4th season very depressed, so maybe I didn't catch it.
You probably didn't. It's actually one of the better parts of it. But at the same time, it is completely dependent upon their whole thing about, these genetically altered people being, feared and hunted down and whatnot. Like we've talked about, hey, we can mess with Vulcan genome because we're trying to create a kid. But as soon as we try and alter your genome to have your kids be smart, then that's a bad boo-boo. You bad person.
I just yesterday watched the DS9 episode with Bashir, where it's horrible. Don't worry, because it's you. It's going to be fine. All right. we decided to go ahead and give you a pass because you did good.
You're doing good work.
Yeah, you're doing the Lord's work. Yeah.
but yet, vilify those eugenics experiments because those people,
Yeah.
they're evil. Yeah, I mean,
What was the second one?
The second one was the thing with Discovery. Actually, Discovery brought back the Klingons
They
in.
didn't bring it back. That's once again the pendulum swinging too fucking far the other direction.
The Klingons they brought back were not Klingons, as far as I'm concerned. Agreed, but at the same time, they are Klingons officially listed in canon as Klingons, and so
they went so hard that was one of the things besides the giant tardigrade and the highway of mushrooms, but the spore highway. No, that was one of the things that I couldn't stand was the Klingons. They put so much crap on them. The actors couldn't even enunciate the words because they had so much crap in their mouths. It was
they changed their teeth. They changed their teeth structure. I mean, a lot of the way you pronounce fricatives and the way you pronounce consonants depends on the structure of your mouth.
Yeah.
And if you change the structure of your mouth, it's going to change how you pronounce words. That's as simple as it gets. That's one of the funny parts about our language drift is because we've had people who did not have teeth, and so people changed the way they pronounce words to suit. But anyway, getting to the whole thing with the Klingons, the explanation that was provided was, "Oh, we've done some surgery and we've done some gene therapy to change his look." What they did with Pike and Crew and Company when they beamed down to the planet in the very first episode of Strange New Worlds, where they were, well, we changed them, and they're temporarily they're going to look like these aliens, but internally they're still who they are.
It's just a physiological change that's temporary. It's not a genome deep one.
Right, and that's exactly what was said in the original series, because in the original series, the Klingon agent that was on K7, his name was Arvin Darvin, was a Klingon, but he externally looked human. But when McCoy goes, "This man is a Klingon! How dare you, sir? This is not proper. This is not."
That doesn't explain why all the Klingons looked one way, and then once Christopher Walken played them, they looked another way. Well, actually, all the way back to the TMP.
Are you talking about Christopher Plummer?
Christopher Walken. There's a lot of Christophers.
Because I'm not aware of Christopher Walken actually playing.
It would have been great. It would have been great. It would have been a Klingon with cowbell. All right,
I will say if they ever let you have AI where you can change the characters, I would love to see Christopher Walken be the character from Star Trek 6 as General Chang.
Yeah, that would be great. But what was the point? Man, we went off on that one. Because all through TOS, and I am trying to remember. I don't remember. I need to go through the animated series. I believe the Klingons in the animated series still had the TOS look.
They do. They absolutely do.
So in 78, 79, when they come out with TMP, that's the first time that the Klingons looked
changed.
TNG Klingons.
Actually, the original, I could be wrong, but I think the person who proposed that they changed the look of the Klingons was the guy who designed the outfits, which is Fletcher. And his original drawing of the Klingons is really getting into almost weird sort of psychedelic, kind of getting into, I won't say hippy dippy, but a bad acid trip Klingon. This huge amount of appliance over the head, almost looks like a face hugger decided to imprint themselves on the head. And there's all sorts of stuff going on with the face, and they toned it down. And as they like to call them in TMP period, before Star Trek 3, they called them lobster heads, because if you look at it, it looks like they have lobsters on top of their head, quite literally. And I kind of sort of wonder if they didn't take a lobster and do like a molding of the lobster.
And when
just
they
do
got
it.
to TNG, I always saw that more of as a horseshoe crab on their heads.
Yeah. Well, they kept changing the way it was done. I mean, with Krug and Company, yeah, they were more like horseshoe crabs because they were more stylized. They had bulges and whatnot. They weren't just this huge central ridge going all the way back around the head, and the segmented sections look like the spine going up on top of their forehead. But then you got to TNG, and they were like, "Well, Michael Dorn needs to be able to put on his makeup and get to shoot something today before we, lose the daylight effectively." So they cut down the makeup to where it was more manageable. So it was basically, if I remember correctly, it was this. He had eyebrow appendages right here,
Right.
and then they had the actual thing that covered his head, the head cap, and they had the main piece right here with the hair, and the hair was something that went over the top. Oh yeah, there's Mark Leonard as the captain of the U.S. or not the U.S. the
Yeah, and that
IKB.
definitely looks like a lobster. That's a lobster.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, lobster head. Would you like your lobster cooked, or do you want it broiled, or do you want steamed or broiled, sir?
No, I'll stay away from
If it's
the
Klingon, I'll
sea
pass.
lice.
I don't need any pink stuff on my plate. Thank you.
But okay, back to, because we need to start winding up. Okay, so Strange New Worlds has been praised for returning to the episodic format that we liked. All right, where it's not all just a continuously overarching, overarching arc that requires you to be committed to the show in order to get it. I mean, that's the thing, is you can have an arc in there, but you still need to have a a monster of the week, an alien of the week, a resolution of the week. That way, if someone just wants to dip their toes, they can dip their toes in, and then they can ask the questions, well, what was going on with this other stuff? I need to go back and look at these other things. And that's what pulls them in. But you need to have something where they can just watch a singular episode, still get something out of that without having to watch everything. And we do like the Lower Decks and Prodigy. Hopefully the Star Trek Starfleet Academy is going to help bring in the younger audiences as well. But one of the things we, as individuals who are involved in Starfleet, have to do is we have to figure out how to bring the youngins in, because right now trying to get Gen A, or the millennials, or Gen A, or whatever the hell Gen it is now,
millennials or Gen Y and
boomers to interact. It's they don't understand each other. They don't. There's only so much of being a translator I can do. And
so you're saying are you saying your Uhura capabilities are not as good as
I'm saying I had my fill back in the 80s of having to program people's VCRs, so it no longer will flash 12 all the time, being a 12 o'clock flasher, which is a great.
Man.
Have you ever watched the Arrogant Worms?
It sounds familiar.
They're a Canadian band. All right. From early 2000s, they were a Canadian band, late 90s, early 2000s. And but at one point, one of them was doing like an opening in some comedy festival. I think it was the Montreal Comedy Festival. He was doing a monologue up there, and it was called Internet Help Desk. And he was breaking in a new guy to working on the Internet Help Desk. If you have not seen this, with what you do for your, you have to watch. I mean, I will find it and I will send it to you. It is freaking hilarious.
Deal.
All right, but anyways, yeah, I'm tired of translating for these people.
Fair enough.
So we have to figure out how to not only to get the younger generation interested in it, because I think that's already happened. But the problem is that when the younger generation that's interested in it tries to come into, your standard Star Trek fan club, it's manned by people who have been sitting there for 20 plus years, and they're very stuck in their ways, and sometimes they don't smell good.
Not anybody we know. Just put that out there.
Yeah, no, not even. But I'm just saying that when it comes to some of the boomers out there, they are not as open to, and that's another thing too. Is this younger generation, just because something is one way doesn't mean that they want it to continue being one way. They will mix it up, which is fine. Yeah, mix it up all you want, but then you have the diehard Trekkies or Trekkers. I mean, there's people out there that will go fisticuffs over Trekkies versus Trekkers, and
still to this day,
and I'm a Trek don't give a fucker. So I don't understand that. But anyways, so we need to figure out that, and and if Skydance does license off some of the IP, perhaps it might make its way back to Netflix or something. That would be great, because Netflix always tries to snap up stuff like that, and a lot more people out there have Netflix than have,
Paramount Plus. Actually, what I'd really like to see as a renaissance is what they should start to do, and this is my sincerely held belief, is they should start to syndicate out Discovery and start marshaling it all over to syndication. And then once they do Discovery and they get it all out, then do Strange New Worlds and also do Lower Decks. And then once they got those going in the cycle, then go ahead and look at creating not a streaming series, but a series that is both streaming and syndication, that is both at the same time.
But one thing that you have to keep in mind is anymore, the number of households that no longer have cable is growing and growing. We have not had cable in our house 15 plus years, almost 20 years now. We cut the cord. And there's a lot of people out there that have just completely cut the cord. So I think the modern day version of syndication is going to be licensing it out to the streaming services without exclusivity.
That's what I'm talking about. But I'm also talking about like those there are a lot of like antenna stations. People can't afford, cable or can't afford streaming for whatever reason. Let's just say I'm just going to be straight. I mean, I deal day in and day out with people who are like, well, I got rid of my cable and this is what I do. Okay, well, if you want to get that share of the market, you want to grab that, make it where you create a bundle for your syndicated package that's a lower resolution, and you give them a taste. And then if they want the higher resolution, or if they want to go ahead and get the streaming package for, let's say you want to get the 4K experience. Yeah. You want to do the full blown movie thing, then get Paramount Plus. And then for everything else, you go to Netflix or whatever other streaming service like you're talking about. And you can do the tiers. You go 4K, Paramount Plus, everything else, Netflix, everything else, lower band TV stations. And then you would have the ability to get more fans coming in, regardless of wherever they're at in the United States.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's the show. No, but seriously, we do need to be
brought to you by.
Brought to you by Nestle Quick. No, it's after 8:00. I do need to get going for dinner with the wife. But I think this has been a decent discussion this evening. And moving forward here, we need to go shoot all lawyers. I think that was the gist of everything.
Okay. That's the 21st century idea. Yeah, kill all the lawyers.
Yeah,
but don't do that, bro. Please.
And it also helps that most politicians are lawyers. So there we go.
No. We're not advocating violence, people. Please.
No
violence.
No. Violence is the last refuge of the feeble-minded. I think that was Einstein's quote. But anyways, everybody, Have a good night. This next weekend, we are going to be out at Anime Fest. So there's not going to be a Boldly Trekking episode next weekend because we're going to be at Anime Fest.
Yep.
So, all right, everybody. Have a good night.